few videos. People just didn't want to believe that there were PlayStation haters, insecure Xbox fanboys, and PC fanboys, and people who just wanted to hate on PlayStation and thought that I was...
This is still DRM. What are you talking about, man? That just goes as far to tell you that they were right, and people that were used to the permanent license of how Sony had it before had every single right to complain about it. What are you talking about, bro? You get a 14-day and a 30-day license. Matter of fact, that is 2 checks, because you got one with the temporary, and then you got to do it again within the 30-day license period. So what are you even talking about? Oh, this ain't the same thing. Yeah, you're right. It's worse than what it was before. But to touch upon this whole permanent license thing, I would advise you guys to actually look up the definition of what a license is, which means authorization, okay? Which means that you guys don't own anything. Because let's get in real detail. We got the DS, the 3DS, the Wii, the PS3, the PSP. Those were all permanent devices where you could download your games. Can you continue to still do that? Can you download games on those platforms? Oh, I forgot. Nintendo closed the eShops, right? I forgot Sony shut the service for the PSP, and they're working on doing that with the PS3, which means that you'll lose access to the games that you purchase on those devices, which means that you people don't own anything. It's the same thing even on Steam and Xbox. What are you guys talking about, man? You guys are acting like you won something. You didn't win anything. If anything, all Sony did was make what they had before worse. And you guys out here saying, we won. Look at that. We can cope now. Oh, really? Oh, my goodness.
They're trying to defend when I'm sitting here trying to make you see the truth rather than get stuck in your identity labels. Refund period, 14 days. An online check required to convert to a permanent license. That's it. After you do that, you're done forever.
But what does that really mean at the end? So what you're telling me that PlayStation is going to keep up the PS5 10, 15, 20 years from now so I can still continue to download my permanent license of game? I highly doubt that, bro. And anybody that believes in that nonsense don't even know what they're talking about. Because we've seen so many devices time and time again, especially Nintendo. And funny thing is you never even brought up the Nintendo DRM, Nintendo Switch 2 DRM, which I brought up to your attention. You know, you completely threw that under the rug. Are they going to still support these permanent licenses, or are they only supporting them as long as they're still here and exist, or whatever new platform that they have now? See, that's something that you guys ain't taking into consideration. So when you guys sit there and say, oh, we own these games, we own them. So unless you think your PS5 is going to last for, remember, it's electronics, 10, 15, 20 years from now, and Sony's going to maintain the service to where you can download those same permanent license games, well, guess what? You don't own anything. Because how many people bought games on the Wii and the Wii U and they no longer have access to the games that they purchased, but they're permanent licenses? See, you guys are not... See, the funny thing is, this right here is going to make you guys feel like, okay, oh, we can rest now. You know, Sony finally came out, even though it was a DRM check. You know, people was right on it. It wasn't a bug. It was something that Sony was implementing. But yes, you know, Sony has secured our purchases. If anything, this makes me want to buy less games on the platform. This is all DRM, man, digital rights management. And what I'm trying to tell you guys, what happens if your games get corrupted? 10, 15 years down the road, you're going to lose access to all your games anyway. So temporary 30-day permanent license, regardless of what it is, on whatever platform you're playing on. You guys also bring up Steam a lot. I mean, Steam is very popular. Steam is only good because it's very popular. But have you guys ever thought of the day that if Valve just said, you know what, we're just done with doing Steam, there goes all the access of your games that you purchase on PC. You do understand that, right? Same thing with Xbox. That's why I'm so looking forward to what they're doing with the PC transition, because we already know that the PC gaming will outlive the console platform. So I'll be able to take my catalog to what they're pushing through PC. That's why I'm happy about it. So what it does, it helps solidify and secures my purchases, and not just tie them to one box like Nintendo and PlayStation, where as time goes on, you start losing access to all the games you purchased from the previous devices. That's what happens. Y'all know what I'm saying is true. So y'all can cap for this temporary 30-day or even permanent. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, Nintendo eShop had permanent licenses of games too. And guess what? You can't access your catalog because Nintendo no longer supports the product, or should I say the console. Exactly. Gamester with another W. What about that switch
And
to
I'm telling you,
DRM
be careful who
though?
you follow. Be careful who you listen to. This whole time, you thought Sony was taking away your digital library. You thought Sony was coming in anti-consumer.
I mean, this is though. They took something that was better and made it worse. That's the definition of anti-consumer. What are you talking about? They went from I don't care what reason Sony decided to do. They went from a permanent license to a temporary and a 30-day. That is anti-consumer. I don't care if they can't resolve no refunding bug. You can work on that on your online website. How about you actually say, oh, this guy's exploiting us. Let's console ban him. I mean, Sony console banning everybody else for doing stupid stuff. I mean, come on, man. I truly don't believe this. I think this is the setup in preparation for what game Sony got in the inevitable future with the PlayStation 6. That's all I really feel like. I'm gonna keep it a buck with y'all.
But you were wrong the whole time.
How are people wrong? This is still DRM. When you get the PS5 disk drive, you still have to synchronize it online. That is DRM. What about if your disk drive breaks? See, these are things that you're not taking into consideration. What happens if your disk drive breaks? So disk drives, you can't replace it because PlayStation don't have this services. See, this is what y'all not understand. You still don't get it. You know, this is what happens when you are sucking off a corporation and you can't see past that fact. See, the difference between me, I do. I always think, oh, what about my disk drive breaks? What happened if, the digital games, gets wiped up? I had an Xbox that literally wiped out all my games, bro. All my digital games was wiped. All of them. You feel me? You guys want to sit there and act like your purchases are secured when in reality, the only way that they're secured is when you go online and they still have their services. That is it. Which also shows you that is DRM. That's control. That's what it is.
Everybody was looking for an answer, but there were some people that went too far off of the deep end. We don't need to mention any names. We understand the way this stuff works.
Switch to DRM.
Sony is not taking away your games. Why would PlayStation do that? It didn't make sense to me to begin with. That's why I was sitting here defending.
Of course, nobody was saying that. Nobody was saying that Sony was taking away your games. The gamers were mad about the lack of freedom that they had in regards to the purchases that they made. We already know when you sign in, all the games that you have logged into your account as associated with your account. We all know that. The problem was the freedom. And regardless of this whole 30-day license limit that you guys keep talking about, that is still impeding in a lot of people's freedom in regards to the purchases of the games that they're making. That is the point that people was trying to make.
It doesn't make any sense. I don't think Sony's doing this because Sony hasn't officially said anything. I said it was a bug eventually, but that is closer to what people were trying to present.
It definitely wasn't a bug. Clearly, we know it wasn't a bug. You was wrong on that, brother.
Right? Because a lot of other people were saying the same thing. You do not need to rebuy games. There is not a period.
I think we already know the two options. I don't think that was the problem. I don't think people had those issues.
Without a 30-day check-in. It was a lie. That's what some people wanted to believe because they're not a true gamer. They wanted PlayStation to look negative so that they can feel more secure about the loser position and other identities and algorithms. If you can say they have an identity. The return of CBOMB issue resurrected isn't intentional. We saw what Spawnwave did. Spawnwave was just being what Spawnwave is. So.
See, the problem is that it's still DRM. And like I've said before, the points that I've made still stand. Doesn't matter. The points that I make still stand with Xbox, PlayStation, Steam. I know people say we'll find a way to back up our games on Steam if Steam ever decided to shut down their service. At the end of the day, you guys are still locked to a service. All your games are locked to a platform or an ecosystem that can all be taken away, all from the press of a button. That's what y'all don't understand. And as far as I'm concerned, that is the biggest DRM issue. But for you guys to believe that Sony's going to support the PS5 platform and they're going to support all my digital games when they haven't even done it for their PSPs, they're already taking games away from the PS3. Not every game you bought on PS3 is playable on the PS4, which means that you have lost access or will lose access to the games that you're purchasing when Sony decides to shut the service. Nintendo is the prime example. Oh, but he's a Nintendo fan. He won't talk about that. Just like he won't talk about the Switch to DRM that I brought up in my video. But yeah, let's focus on this. With the 3DS, the DS, what happened to all those eShops? What happened to all the games that people have purchased throughout the generations of Nintendo devices, and you no longer have access, permanent license or not, and you no longer have access to those games because Nintendo stopped supporting those devices. What do you guys don't get? As far as I'm concerned, that is still DRM. You're still in control because everything is tethered to the ecosystem. That's what it is. So anything that's tethered to being online, let it be, oh, but we own the license. We own, okay, let's say I downloaded some games on my 3DS and Nintendo no longer supports it and the game gets corrupted. And I'm like, oh, shoot, I got to re-download the game again. Let me go log into Nintendo eShop to see if I can re-download it to fix my... Oh, I can't do that no more. Why? Because Nintendo shut the service of their platform. There you go. Y'all want to sit there and talk about, well, this online? Your system is a DRM product. What do y'all don't get? The whole platform that you purchase is a DRM product. Forget this update, which Sony clearly made worse, and you're out here saying it's consumer friendly. No, it's not. It's not. And you guys said it had no DRM. Let's not forget. You said no DRM. That's what y'all said. Y'all didn't say no temporary. Y'all didn't say no 30 day. If anything, those people was closer to finding out what was going on with that than you guys out here claiming that it's a bug. And Sony didn't want to do that. It's not DRM. You guys are more wrong. Those dudes are more right than you are. Yeah, they might have not been right in regards to the games being a 30-day license to a permanent one. But to me, there's nothing permanent here. I'm still going to stand on these principles. There's nothing permanent. If Sony shuts the service of the PS5 10, 15 years down the road and your games get... Because we got to remember, guys, these are electronics, bro. Things break, especially with usage. And let's say my disk drive breaks on my PlayStation, right? And I want to replace it. Matter of fact, that's even going to be difficult because you're not going to be able to find a replacement disk drive. You're not, because there's not that many manufactured. And I highly doubt Sony's going to manufacture ones for you to keep your PS5 going because they're going to want to push you to the next one. And there goes all your games. All the games that you purchase, poof, gone. All because 10, 15 years down the road, Sony no longer wants to support the PS5 like how they did. I mean, eventually they're going to do that with the PS4. The PS4 is going to be the new PS3. And that's why Sony's trying to alienate that platform. They're just trying to let's try to destroy this platform as much as possible. Let's ruin the jailbreaking scene. Let's try everything in our power to ruin this console because we want everybody pushed to the PS5. That to me is DRM. That just shows me that they don't want to continue to support the platform of all the games that you purchase on your previous devices, which to me is still DRM. So you could take your permanent license and act like it's permanent, it's here forever, but in reality it's not, because 10, 15 years, 20 years, that permanent license that you guys think you're holding on is going to be gone anyway.
Because that's the levels to the game. I'm not turning on Dragon Ball Z to say that everybody's equal. That's an illusion. Let's enjoy it for what it is, right? Let's enjoy all these channels for what they are. There's not equality in this. We know some people are